They may come from trusted brands, but these motorcycles are failing hard. Overpriced, underpowered, or just plain confused, dealers can't sell them fast enough. Number 1 is a name you'll recognize, but wish you didn't. Number 7. Suzuki Boulevard C50. What looks like a laid-back classic cruiser on the outside hides an engine that's firmly stuck in the past. A liquid-cooled, fuel-injected 805 cubic centimeter V-twin sits at the core of this middleweight cruiser. It delivers roughly 53 horsepower and 48 pound-feet of torque, enough for relaxed highway riding, but not much more. The 5-speed gearbox is paired with a shaft final drive, offering smooth and low-maintenance operation. Front suspension is handled by a traditional telescopic fork, while the rear features a preload adjustable single shock. Braking is where things start to show their age. A single disc with a dual piston caliper up front and a drum brake in the rear. With a wet weight of 611 pounds, it's manageable at low speeds but sluggish when pushed. The seat height of 27.6 inches makes it friendly for shorter riders, but limited ground clearance and basic ergonomics restrict long-haul comfort. There's no anti-lock braking system, no traction control, and no electronic aids, just pure simplicity. That bare-bones approach was part of the appeal when this bike first hit the market. It promised the traditional cruiser experience in a more affordable, accessible package. With its sweeping fenders, chrome tank panels, and long, low silhouette, it certainly looked the part. But year after year, while competitors evolved with modern features, this model stayed mostly the same. What was once seen as a simple, no-nonsense cruiser now feels like a dated machine frozen in time. And for newer riders expecting performance, tech, or even basic comfort, disappointment sets in fast. On the road, it hums along with decent stability but lacks urgency. The engine doesn't vibrate much, but it also doesn't inspire. Acceleration is predictable, bordering on dull, and the shaft drive, while reliable, adds extra weight and drag. The riding triangle puts your feet forward and arms wide, which works for short stints but becomes tiring over longer distances. The rear shock, especially with a passenger on board, struggles with bumps and offers minimal damping. And although the classic silhouette may look appealing in photos, the ergonomics don't match the demands of real-world riding today. Visually, the design holds up, at least at a glance. Chrome dominates the cockpit with an old-school analog gauge that lacks a trip meter, fuel range indicator, or even gear position. Halogen lights still illuminate the road, and the bars, switches, and mirrors haven't been significantly updated in nearly a decade. Even optional accessories are limited, and aftermarket support is sparse. In today's cruiser market, where riders expect at least minimal tech or customization flexibility, this platform struggles to keep pace with anything built after 2020. Retail pricing hovers around $8,999. On paper, that might seem like a deal, but when you compare it to used Harley-Davidson street models, Yamaha Bolt variants, or even entry-level Indians, the cracks start to show. Those bikes offer anti-lock braking systems, stronger engines, better ride quality, and deeper support networks. This one, it offers a look and little else. Dealers know it, riders feel it, and unless it's heavily discounted, it tends to sit on showroom floors, waiting for a buyer who doesn't show. After analyzing consumer reviews and sales data, it's clear that these bikes aren't making the cut. Like if you were surprised by any of these models, and subscribe for more research-backed breakdowns on why some motorcycles just aren't cutting it in the American market. From too small to just plain awkward, the next machine didn't just miss the market, it never found one to begin with. Number 6. Yamaha XSR 155. It's not enough to slap a retro tank on a modern commuter and expect riders to fall in love. That's the hard lesson many dealers are learning with this model. Powering the XSR 155 is a 155 cubic centimeter single-cylinder engine that produces just 19 horsepower and 14 pound-feet of torque. Paired with a 5-speed transmission, it's tuned for smooth, predictable delivery, but that's where the praise ends. In a segment where even entry-level bikes now offer 25 to 30 horsepower with more refined parallel twin engines, this retro-styled machine comes up well short. The engine runs out of breath early, offers little low-end grunt, and lacks the urgency needed to carve through traffic or handle steep climbs. For a bike aiming to honor Yamaha's heritage, it doesn't bring enough heat to back up the look. From the moment it was introduced, it was clear that this bike was trying to tap into the visual DNA of Yamaha's XSR Heritage series with without fully committing to its spirit. The styling is sharp, there's no denying that. A sculpted fuel tank, round LED headlamp, tuck-and-roll style seat, and clean subframe give it instant cafe racer curb appeal. But once riders move past that surface-level nostalgia, reality sets in. This isn't a scaled-down version of the XSR 700 or 900. It's a basic commuter wearing a vintage disguise, and that disconnect becomes obvious the moment the road opens up. Hardware choices reveal more of the same compromises. Suspension comes in the form of standard telescopic forks at the front and a rear monoshock, tuned more for comfort than performance. Braking is handled by a single disc front and rear, with a single-channel anti-lock braking system available in certain markets. Seat height stands at 31 inches, while the curb weight is a light 294 pounds. Great for parking lot maneuvering, but not ideal for highway stability. The tires are narrow and provide limited grip, especially when leaning into corners or riding on uneven pavement. The overall feel is light but not planted, agile but not precise. That soft performance would be more forgivable if the bike were priced appropriately, but that's another sticking point. In many global markets, the XSR 155 launches at around $2,700. That places it squarely in competition with bikes offering more power, better components, and a much more refined ride experience. It lacks any ride modes, traction control, or connectivity features. The LCD dash is clean but basic. Riders stepping up from a scooter might find it tolerable, but anyone with experience will be left wanting more. Dealers have tried to position it as a cool, stylish beginner bike, something for new riders who want to stand out. But even that angle struggles. The moment a buyer compares it to Yamaha's larger XSR siblings or other retro-inspired offerings from rival brands, the illusion starts to break. It has the silhouette of a cafe racer, but not the soul. The aftermarket scene is small, customization options are limited, and there's no real support for making it into something special. For weekend riders looking to turn heads or take longer trips, it simply lacks the comfort, character, or capability. What remains is a machine caught between two worlds. It's too expensive for what it offers as a commuter, and too underpowered to live up to its design language. It wants to be everything to everyone, but ends up appealing to no one. And for a brand like Yamaha, with a legacy of bikes that both look good and ride great, this one feels like a missed opportunity wrapped in pretty packaging. But the next entry might be even more frustrating. It's a bike that looks the part, but forgot how to move. The right gear makes the ride. Jackets, gloves, tools, all hand-picked and linked in the description below. Number 5. Kawasaki Z 125 Pro. What began as Kawasaki's bold entry into the mini-moto segment has turned into a tough sell on dealership floors. The issue isn't just performance, it's positioning. With a 125 cubic centimeter air-cooled single-cylinder engine, the Z125 Pro produces only 9.5 horsepower and around 7 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers might make sense on paper for a city runabout, but in practice, the bike struggles to carry heavier adult riders or perform confidently at higher speeds. It simply feels like a toy when you put it next to even mid-range motorcycles. And for many older riders, that lack of authority on the road is a deal breaker. Combine that with a stiff suspension, limited range, and no real cargo or touring utility, and you get a model that lacks both fun and function. The Z125 Pro looked like a promising contender, agile, compact, and aggressive in design, but it simply failed to connect with the American cruiser-minded market. While it shares the upright, stunt-friendly stance of the Honda Grom, the execution left much to be desired. This model was supposed to bring Kawasaki into the urban fun bike craze. Instead, it's sitting in corners of dealerships, overlooked by both younger riders and returning older bikers alike. For many, the bike just doesn't deliver enough for its price tag. From a technical standpoint, the Z125 Pro comes with a single disc brake on both the front and rear, with no anti-lock braking system available. The suspension setup includes a 30mm inverted fork in the front and a preload adjustable rear monoshock. It tips the scales at 224 pounds wet, making it light but not necessarily confidence-inspiring for taller or more experienced riders. The seat height sits at 31.7 inches, which feels cramped for riders over 6 feet tall. At a starting price of $3,599, it sits dangerously close to bigger, more capable entry-level cruisers and standard motorcycles with real highway potential. While the idea of a small, nimble bike has its place, the execution here just didn't match the expectations. Riders looking for a rugged commuter found it too underpowered. Younger riders with a flair for stunt culture gravitated toward the Grom, which offered a more mature aftermarket scene and brand loyalty. And for older riders who value comfort, power, and heritage, the Z125 Pro was never even a consideration. Dealers across the country have been holding on to Z125 Pro units longer than anticipated. It's not uncommon to see year-old inventory still listed at full price, with a little buyer interest and no movement on the floor. In a market where bikes need to either speak to nostalgia or thrill with performance, this one delivers neither. And as Harley-Davidson dealers know well, a bike that can't anchor itself in either heritage or horsepower quickly becomes just another machine gathering dust. From outdated chrome to plastic cladding, the next bike tried to blend performance with style and failed at both. Number 4. Honda Hornet 2.0. It had the name, it had the look, but when it came time to deliver, this one just couldn't sting. Beneath its aggressive styling lies a 184 cubic centimeter single-cylinder engine that produces just 17 horsepower and 12 pound-feet of torque. While those specs might be acceptable for a budget commuter, they fall embarrassingly short for a bike that visually positions itself as a sharp, naked street fighter. Twist the throttle and you're met with hesitation, not urgency. Power delivery feels muted, acceleration is sluggish, and any illusion of performance vanishes the moment real-world riding begins. For a motorcycle that carries the Hornet badge, this lack of punch is more than just disappointing. It's confusing. For older American riders who remember the original Hornets, the name once stood for something exciting, something raw and ready to run. This latest version, however, marketed mainly in India and similar export markets, fails to carry that legacy forward. At first glance, it makes a strong visual case. A sharply sculpted tank, angular headlight, and gold-colored upside-down front forks hint at a bike built for attitude and aggression. But that visual promise quickly collapses under the weight of its performance. It's all costume and no character. Riders expecting even modest fun out of the gate quickly realize they've been sold a commuter in a sport bike disguise. The suspension package tells a similar story. Up front, the inverted fork adds a splash of showroom appeal, but on the road it delivers a ride that's more budget than balanced. At the rear, a monoshock with 5-step preload adjustment aims for adaptability, but ends up providing little comfort on uneven pavement. Braking is managed by a single 276mm disc in the front and a 220mm disc in the rear with single-channel anti-lock braking. While that setup sounds competitive at this price point, actual braking performance is merely average. Sufficient for city riding, but far from confidence-inspiring during spirited use. And that's the core problem with this machine. It constantly suggests more than it delivers. Weighing just 238 pounds, the Hornet 2.0 is nimble and easy to handle, especially for newer riders. But that lightweight advantage goes to waste when paired with such an underwhelming powertrain. The handling might be quick, but there's simply not enough torque or speed to make use of it. You're left with a bike that moves like a toy and feels like a tease. Honda marketed this model in the range of $1,500 overseas, a tempting price on paper. But once you factor in its limitations, it quickly becomes clear that value here is purely skin deep. The styling may catch a few eyes from the curb, but the riding experience tells a different story. Commuters who prioritize simplicity often bypass this model for more proven platforms. Enthusiasts who once loved the Hornet name are baffled by its reappearance on such a tame machine. And younger buyers, those drawn in by its aggressive look, don't stay long once they experience its limited performance. The result has been predictable. Dealerships in international markets are watching these units linger on showroom floors. Some dealers have stopped restocking them entirely, unwilling to take another bet on a name that no longer carries weight. And now we move to the touring bike that even die-hard Yamaha fans couldn't defend. Number 3. Yamaha Fazer 25. It was pitched as a well-rounded sport touring solution, a motorcycle that could offer performance, comfort, and everyday practicality in one neat package. But at the heart of the Fazer 25 lies a 249 cubic centimeter single-cylinder engine, delivering just 20 horsepower and roughly 14 pound-feet of torque. That's barely enough for city commuting, let alone the highway demands expected of a touring machine. From the first twist of the throttle, riders quickly discovered that this bike wasn't built for spirited travel or long-haul endurance. Instead, it felt sluggish, underpowered, and stretched thin in every situation beyond short-distance riding. On paper, Yamaha's goal was clear: deliver a lightweight, efficient sport tourer for budget-conscious riders. But out on the road, it became evident that the execution missed the mark. The fairing hinted at highway readiness and the riding position suggested versatility, but once you spent time in the saddle, the limitations started to pile up. Power delivery was flat, passing power was virtually non-existent, and the bike strained under highway conditions. What should have been a reliable all-rounder ended up feeling like a commuter bike masquerading as something more adventurous. Technically, the setup is basic. The Fazer 25 features standard telescopic forks in the front and a monoshock suspension system at the rear. Braking comes from disc brakes at both ends, paired with a single-channel anti-lock braking system. Adequate but not confidence-inspiring for long touring rides or heavy braking scenarios. The bike weighs in at 332 pounds wet and carries a fuel tank capable of holding just 3.5 gallons. Combined with its modest efficiency and small tank size, real-world range often fell short of expectations. Tall riders also found the ergonomics lacking, with a cramped riding triangle and minimal wind protection from the slim fairing. The biggest disappointment came in long-distance usability, the very area where it was supposed to shine. The seat, while padded for short trips, lacked depth and support for anything extended. The foot peg placement, paired with the tank's shape, resulted in a cramped lower body position that led to fatigue within an hour of riding. Riders reported frequent stops, not just for fuel, but for comfort breaks. In the touring category, those aren't minor flaws, they're deal breakers. Visually, the Fazer 25 followed Yamaha's aggressive design trend, but it didn't quite land. The fairing looked like a bolt-on addition rather than something integrated into the bike's overall design language. It lacked aerodynamic flow, and its proportions made the entire machine look slightly unbalanced. The color schemes leaned toward generic, failing to strike a memorable aesthetic. It looked fast, but didn't move like it. And for a sport touring bike, that contradiction was hard to overlook. Then came the pricing. In export markets, the Fazer 25 launched at around $3,400. At first glance, that seemed like an accessible figure, but when stacked against competitors offering more power, better features, and stronger performance, it began to feel overpriced. It lacked smartphone integration, didn't offer ride modes or traction control, and didn't even come with a full digital display. Omissions that stood out in a segment where even entry-level bikes now come with tech-forward dashboards and connectivity features. Now let's talk about a model that looked fast but couldn't outrun its own limitations. Number 2. Honda CBR 500R. Some motorcycles look like they mean business. Sharp lines, aggressive fairings, and bold graphics that scream performance. But once you twist the throttle, the illusion fades. This particular mid-weight sport bike falls squarely into that category. Beneath the full-faired styling and aerodynamic posture lies a 4-stroke parallel twin engine displacing 471 cubic centimeters, producing 47 horsepower and 32 pound-feet of torque. On paper, those numbers may seem reasonable for daily riding or weekend fun, but in today's rapidly evolving motorcycle market, they no longer move the needle. The braking system includes a single disc up front and a disc in the rear, both paired with dual-channel anti-lock braking. Suspension comes from a conventional telescopic fork in the front and a Pro-Link rear shock, reliable but nothing that sparks excitement. Weighing in at around 425 pounds with a 30.5-inch seat height, it lands in the comfort zone for many riders. But at a starting price of $7,200, comfort isn't enough anymore. This bike once positioned itself as the perfect middleweight bridge, ideal for beginners wanting to upgrade or intermediate riders seeking balance between fun and function. But the market has moved on, and this machine hasn't. Where other brands have added slipper clutches, quick shifters, multiple ride modes, and traction-enhancing electronics, this model has largely stood still. That stagnation hasn't gone unnoticed. In a segment overflowing with more capable and more refined options, often at equal or lower price points, riders have started looking elsewhere. Whether it's a value-packed machine from a Japanese rival or a tech-rich upstart from a European or Asian brand, buyers today simply expect more. The result? This bike is no longer competitive and, more importantly, no longer compelling. Riders shopping in this class often find themselves torn between moving up to a 650 cubic centimeter machine that actually thrills, or stepping down to a lighter 300 or 321 cubic centimeter platform that's more agile, efficient, and often more fun to ride in the city. That leaves this middleweight stuck in a no man's land. Underpowered for its size, overpriced for what it offers, and outpaced by nearly everything in its class. Even worse, it's being cannibalized by its own siblings. Within the same brand family, entry-level bikes offer similar performance at a much lower cost, while more premium offerings deliver double the capability for only a modest increase in price. For a rider trying to find long-term value or all-around excitement, this middle-tier model quickly becomes the odd one out. The styling still grabs a few eyes, but once riders start comparing numbers, or worse, take a test ride, the appeal fades fast. But if you think this model's fall from grace is surprising, the last bike on the list takes a legendary name and wraps it around a commuter engine, creating one of the most baffling missteps in the entire adventure category. Our research shows these Japanese motorcycles are struggling to stay relevant in the market. Like if you agree with our analysis, and subscribe for more in-depth findings on the bikes that are fading fast. Number 1. Suzuki V Strom 250SX. It wears the V Strom badge proudly on its side panels, but behind the name is a 249 cubic centimeter single-cylinder, air and oil-cooled engine that delivers just 26 horsepower and 17 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers are passable for a small street commuter, but woefully inadequate for a bike marketed as an adventure tourer. The power band feels sluggish. The torque comes in late, and the motor strains once highway speeds are involved, especially with any luggage or passenger weight. For riders expecting long-distance comfort or off-road readiness, the performance gap becomes obvious almost immediately. It may look like it belongs in the V Strom family, but it rides more like a reskinned commuter with an identity crisis. Suzuki had a real opportunity here to capitalize on the growing lightweight adventure segment. Riders today want machines that balance urban practicality with trail capability, but instead of delivering a purpose-built mini Explorer, Suzuki repurposed the Gixxer 250 platform and hoped styling alone would do the job. The result is a motorcycle that mimics the look of its larger siblings, but fails to live up to the expectations set by the V Strom name. With angular bodywork, a short windscreen, and upright ergonomics, it visually fits the bill. But once you get on the saddle, it becomes clear this bike isn't designed for exploration. It's designed for appearances. The suspension setup is basic at best. A conventional telescopic fork up front and a preload adjustable monoshock in the rear offer limited travel, nowhere near what you'd want for navigating rocky trails or uneven surfaces. The braking system includes a single disc with dual piston caliper in the front and a matching rear disc, both supported by a basic anti-lock braking system. While adequate for stop-and-go city riding, the brakes lack the modulation and bite needed for confident control on loose gravel or wet dirt. Ground clearance comes in at just 7.1 inches, far too low for a machine expected to leave the pavement. Weighing 384 pounds wet, the bike feels light in city traffic, but becomes unstable once loaded with gear. The subframe isn't designed for touring payloads, limiting your ability to mount panniers or a top box without risking structural wear. Despite its ADV styling, the SX lacks handguards, crash protection, or even a skid plate, items that are standard on many other small adventure bikes. The wheels are cast aluminum, not spoked, and the 17-inch diameter paired with bias ply tires further restricts its ability to handle anything beyond the occasional gravel driveway. The riding position is upright and reasonably neutral, but the seat lacks the padding needed for long hours in the saddle. After about an hour, most riders will start to feel discomfort. The digital display is clean and easy to read, but minimal in functionality. There are no ride modes, modes, no connectivity options, and no built-in navigation, features that are becoming increasingly common even in the sub-$5,000 category. The switchgear feels basic and plasticky, and the overall build quality is noticeably behind some of its rivals. It looks adventure-ready at a glance, but under scrutiny, the illusion wears thin. With a starting price of $4,699, the V Strom 250SX sits uncomfortably close to more capable options. Bikes like the Royal Enfield Himalayan or Kawasaki's Versys 300X offer significantly more off-road capability, better load-carrying support, and real-world performance upgrades. If you've owned any of these bikes, or if you're considering one, drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to stay updated on the latest trends, hit that subscribe button and join us for more research-driven insights. Until next time, keep riding smart and stay informed.